Thank you. Good evening, and welcome to the Geffen Playhouse. My name is Brian Allman. I use he, him pronouns. I am the Director of Education and Community Engagement here at the Geffen Playhouse, and one of... Thank you. Oh, thank you. This feels like an odd family reunion. This is a little weird. Thank you. One of the co-directors here tonight, and I would like to welcome you all to the Geffen Playhouse Veterans Monologue Writing and Performance Show. We would first like to begin this evening by acknowledging that the sacred indigenous lands upon which the Geffen Playhouse now sits is the traditional and unceded homeland of the Kitch, Tongva, and Chumash nations. As an institute of art and culture, we are working towards us being a space where Native voices can be uplifted, amplified, and heard. For more information about the land that we are residing on, go to www.native-land.ca. Now, thank you all for joining us tonight. The Geffen Playhouse is proud to welcome this program and for our return to live in-person performances here at the Gil Cates Theater. This is the first time that this program has been live here on this stage since 2018, so thank you for joining us here tonight. Tonight, 11 unique and talented members of the U.S. military community share cultural identity monologues based on an object that represents who they are. The Veterans Writing and Performance Workshop is funded in part by Creative Forces, NEA Military Healing Arts Network, the Kenneth T. and Eileen L. Norris Foundation, Victor Benet's Bakery, and all donors who support the Veterans Initiatives. The Education and Community Engagement Department would like to thank Gil Cates Jr. and all Geffen Playhouse staff for their help and support of this evening. We also want to acknowledge our partnership with VME, Veterans in Media Entertainment! And a very special thank you to our good friend Chaplain Dove Cohen, serving veterans, active duty, and Blue Star families of deployed. Content warning, there are some monologues tonight that do mention sexual assault, suicide, and substance abuse. Lastly, we invite everyone to stick around afterward for a post-show dessert buffet to celebrate the grand accomplishments of this year's cohort. Now, please sit back and enjoy what happens beyond the barracks. Thank you.
Barracks, fall in. Right, haste. Left, haste. Marines, one step forward. Devil dogs, fall out. Navy, one step forward. Sailor, fall out. Army, one step forward. Soldiers, fall out. Since 1941, the USO has been entertaining military and their families both at home and abroad. And today, the steward of America's gratitude herself, Miss USO, is here to continue that tradition with all of you. Please welcome the last and longest reigning Miss USO.
Bop, 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 bop. He was a famous trumpet man, first to fight for the right. Anchors away, my boys. Semper Paratus is our guide. From the halls of Montezuma, off we go into the wild blue yonder. This is America, America, America. My name is Heidi-Marie Ferren, and although I wasn't enlisted, I had the honor of continuing the legacy of Miss USO that started back in 1941 with Audrey Meadows. I'm the longest because I ran and held the position for over 8 years, and I am the last because that legacy concluded with me. Thank you. Thank you. Now, this sash is more to me than the dirt and sweat-stained faux satin, the frayed silver lining, or the red letters that announce a title or position. This sash, to me, is the World War II veterans I danced with, Medal of Honor recipients who pulled their friends out of foxholes and jungles. It's the Battle of the Bulge survivor I sang, "I'll be seeing you two," as he wept in my arms the day his only son deployed for Afghanistan. It's that same son who found me 2 years later at another event just to make sure I knew he'd made it back home. It's hanging out at Walter Reed with service members, taking Polaroids, singing songs, and talking about everything but what got them there. It's Times Square at New Year's Eve, the Yankee Stadium, Rose Bowl, and the thousands of safety pin marks that still make me hear my mother's voice saying, "Now, Heidi, don't snag it." This sash, to me, represents a time in my life when I felt totally worthless and the most meaningful. I'd already performed for the USO for a year before I decided to run for Miss USO, and at that point, I finally felt like I knew my place in the group, which was definitely not at the top. I could silence the voices in my head telling me I had 0 talent and 2 left feet when I was with service members and veterans, but rehearsals were another story. Rehearsals triggered some kind of latent, primal fight or flight left over from a traumatic childhood, and being told that first week of rehearsals, "Heidi, you are in the way." Not the kind of, "Excuse me, I need more space" in the way, but a fundamental truth: you are in the way. Everyone in the room felt it, especially because it came from the mouth of the director. But he was right. I was in the way. I had felt in the way since birth. After all, I was the product of a rape. I went on to a life of assault, abuse, and the foster care system. I had no business sharing the stage with triple threat performers who seemed like the perfect examples of nuclear family success stories. So, I worked my bedazzled booty off to earn my place in their ranks, and I did. But after all that hard work, I was having a hard time figuring out what the point of it was. I was performing for people who had risked their lives, many of whom were about to run out and do it again, while I was singing Andrew's Sisters and Katy Perry medleys. I struggled with this until my first Fleet Week. We were scheduled to perform on the USS Kearsarge, but the weather wasn't cooperating with our air transport, so the Coast Guard stepped in. They shuttled us out, but on the back of my shuttle bus, I noticed a large, older man looking very somber at the back. So I went over to say hello. And after an awkward amount of silence, he leaned over, cracked a smile, and said, "USO, huh? I remember the USO. Saw him perform my 3rd tour in NAMM. Bob Hope, Raquel Welch. Performance was good, but it was after that meant the most to me." I watched him as he tried to suppress the emotions that came with his memories. After the show, Raquel Welch came down to the tents and hung out with us for hours. I had started to wonder at that time whether living long enough to get home was even worth it. But that moment made me feel human again, helped me forget for a time what I'd seen, where I'd been. Gave me what I needed to get home. That conversation changed my life. I knew from that moment on, I would be the last to leave. I would dance with whoever wanted to dance with me, and I would listen to the stories about the scars we both knew would never go away. Because trauma, I knew. And I would run for Miss USO. Now, the year I decided to run, the performance troupe had tripled in size. So there were now about 20 people in the running for Miss USO. It was a week full of intense interviews, vigorous dance calls, and singing the national anthem until our faces were red, white, and blue. It all culminated in an in-person event where the audience would vote in conjunction with an online vote that allowed service members abroad and not in attendance to also vote for Miss USO. During the evening, the top 5 contenders were able to sing a solo that represented why they were a part of the USO in the first place. Now, for me, I come from a long tradition of military service. My family served in every conflict since the American Revolution in every branch of service. But it was a boy I rode the school bus with back home in Arkansas that had me sign up for the USO in the first place. Lance Corporal Aaron P. Mencken. He's the kind of person that lights up every room, and he had been that way since we were kids. So when he enlisted in the Marine Corps, I was a devoted pen pal. I also baked him some pretty horrific peanut butter cookies that definitely didn't travel well. Didn't quite do the math on sending those to boot camp. When I found out that Aaron had been wounded by an IED outside Fallujah, I was devastated. Aaron was thrown from his vehicle and sustained third-degree burns over 3/4 of his body. He spent the next 2 years fighting for his life at Brooke Army Medical. They say that these kinds of injuries are some of the hardest to survive because it requires as much will as it does medical care. But I knew that if there was one person in this world that would take this and make the world a better place, not in spite of it, but because of it, it was Aaron. And he did. Now, after undergoing hundreds of surgeries with the support of Operation Mend, Aaron has not only pushed through his own challenges, but he has supported his fellow service members in pushing through their own. So when I sat in my tiny, tiny apartment, trying to decide if I should risk total humiliation and failure, it was Aaron's face I saw. So that night, I sung Aaron's favorite song from when we were kids in his honor. And it was Aaron's voice I heard first on the phone to congratulate me when I'd won. This sash gave me the opportunity to be more than the girl who was in the way. It gave me the opportunity to be a source of hope for the greatest people I have ever known. And sash or no sash, their memories and their legacies will remain etched on my heart and life forever. I'll be seeing you in every lovely summer's day, in everything that's bright and gay. I'll always think of you that way. I'll find you in the morning sun, and when the night is new, I'll be looking at the moon, but I'll be seeing you. Thank you.
Viva México, viva, viva América, viva, mi sangre a ti daré yo. Oh my, those are sounds you will hear in a traditional Mexican-American household like mine, and I loved it. On my Mexican side, we had mariachi, we had cumbias, yeah, We had Christmas tamales, el español. On my American side, we had the 4th of July, Thanksgiving, American TV, Marsha, Marsha, Marsha. And I went to countless Barry Manilow shows. On my Mexicanas, well, my mom, she was born and raised in Mexico. And my dad, he was born and raised in Texas. Hey, but he didn't describe himself as a Mexican American. He would say, from Texas, I'm an American Mexican. My dad, he loved this country. He believed in the American dream, the land of opportunity. And he always told me, Mija, you're going to work at the White House. The White House, Dad? Daddy, I'm going to be a movie star. No pictures. No pictures. No pictures. Well, fast forward to the late 80s, and my acting career was going nowhere. So I saw this movie, Top Gun. You heard of it? Have you heard of it? Yeah, little movie. And I joined the Navy. Anchors away. And I became part of the White House television unit. They are the personal videographers to the President of the United States. Me, like, wow. And you know, my dad was right. I'm at the White House. Well, there are lots of perks to working there, let me tell you. Like, if you get a promotion or you get some sort of recognition, your family gets a letter of congratulations. This is my copy. Dear Mr. and Mrs. Garcia, I am delighted to inform you that your daughter has received the prestigious Cine Award. On behalf of the President and the entire White House staff, congratulations. My dad, he put that letter in his wallet. Yeah. And he showed it to anyone who would listen to it. You know what I mean? Those proud dads. Your fathers out there? Especially his doctors. My daughter, she works at the White House. And if I don't get good care here, she's going to tell the President of the United States. My dad. Well, I was there 4 years and covered literally thousands of events there. And that included many black tie events outside the White House. At these events, there's plenty of time to hang out before the president arrives. And so some people, the guests there, would ask me, where are the ladies' rooms? We need another bottle of wine at our table, please. Yeah, they saw a brown person in a tuxedo and assumed I was the help. And you know, it was the first time I became aware of the color of the people in the room and that of my own skin. And I felt this weight of responsibility to mi gente, you know, my people, to do a good job there. So I told them that I was there with the President of the United States, hoping hoping they would take note that, sure, brown people are part of the hotel staff, but we're also part of the White House staff. Que no? You know? So I traveled quite a bit, and that included many trips aboard Air Force One. Yeah. And there was this one trip, my dad, he was at LAX, and I saw him at a distance, and I saw him see me boarding Air Force One with the president. I don't know anything that could happen to me that could top that. But performing on this Geffen stage comes pretty close. You know what I mean? This is pretty close. This is pretty close. That was my proudest day. But to my dad, that didn't top that letter from the White House. I was able to give my family a VIP tour and introduce them to the president, except my dad. He had passed away and didn't make the trip. And that letter that he cherished was buried with him. But I know he's probably showing it off up there, right, Dad? Yeah. My dad was right. This is the land of opportunity. Amen. Amen. I am a brown American, Mexicana woman. And I had the pleasure and the privilege to work directly under two presidents of our great nation. So, Viva Mexico! Viva! Viva America! Viva! Ah-ha-hi!
For you judge this man, if you walk in my shoes.
I didn't start out life's journey the most confident person. Nothing traumatic happened in my youth. Well, other than the time my brother accidentally tackled me onto the floor furnace that warmed us up before and after school on brisk winter days. Left a long railroad-like track mark down my left leg. Other than that, my youth was great. The times riding down I-20 in Atlanta to get fireworks with my daddy, listening to B.B. King's "The Thrill Is Gone, Baby," in his sky blue 1965 Buick Electra 225. Or with my mama in her brown 1971 convertible Cadillac. She liked softer music with a hint of gospel, like The Impressions. People get ready, there's a train a-coming. I just didn't have confidence. I remember as a kid observing my parents and wondering if they had confidence. They seemed like it. The way they would stand, walk, head up, grounded. Especially my mama on Saturday mornings as she was preparing for church. She'd stride through the house, only stopping for me to zip her dress as her black patent leather open-toe dress shoes strike the wooden floor with authority as she barked out orders like a caring Marine Corps drill sergeant. Put your dress shoes on, boy. It's time to go. And they better be clean. Yes, I meant Saturdays. We were kind of like Orthodox Jews, but Christian and black with soul. My parents, well, my mama, she kept the Sabbath, which meant everything stopped at sundown Friday until sundown Saturday. No electronic devices, no cooking, no exchanging of money, just Bible study. Now, my daddy, he showed his confidence on weekdays, preparing for work. Stick himself in the arm with a needle, filled it with insulin, get dressed, then he'd lean down and wipe off his already shined black dress shoes. Head up, walking out the door, he'd say, "Make sure your dress shoes are clean for school, boy." It was not fun being the only kid in PE with shine dress shoes sliding to base during kickball. Oh, my daddy, he was a janitor. One humid Georgia Sunday, after completing my chores, I went outside on the porch with a glass of lemonade and vanilla wafers. And my entertainment was my daddy cutting the grass in his signature cutoff shorts made of old jeans or slacks, and my mama in her only uniform of a dress or skirt as she lovingly watered her flower garden. As I glanced from one to the next, it dawned on me that my parents were doing yard work in dress shoes. Now, never mind the white tube socks they were wearing with the NFL team stripe at the top. Who knew my parents liked the Packers and the Steelers so much? But it hit me like the humidity of the day that my parents wear dress shoes everywhere. Laundromat, grocery shopping. My daddy hanging on the corner with his friends drinking a beer as Bobby Blue Bland's "Ain't No Love in the Heart of the City" sermonized them from his Alpine car speakers. I spent the rest of the night thinking about that. After running reason after reason through my mind that kept me awake and unable to sleep, I jumped out of my bed, dashed to my parents' room, gasping for breath, and just blurted out, "Why do you all always wear dress shoes?" Silence. Then they each took turns answering. They help you stand tall in tough times. They give you dignity, boy. Dress shoes are cleaner than sneakers. They keep your feet warm. Anybody going somewhere in life must stand on a solid foundation, boy. I smiled, sprinted back to my room. As soon as I got to the door, the only thought in my mind just blurted out, "Yuck!" What kind of, yuck! Yuck! What kind of answer is that? I don't care about those things. I care about these kids laughing at me because I slide everywhere, damn it. My parents are from rural Georgia. My mama has a 3rd grade education. My daddy a 9th. I remember them telling stories about how, as kids, they would get fruit that they would roll around like toys and dress shoes. And how they would have to journey 3 and 4 miles to school each way when they could go. And on those journeys, they would have to run through hoods where they were chased and called nigger by white kids. And if they didn't have the good shoes that they had as they ran those red clay dirt roads of Georgia, they would have never survived those long and dangerous journeys. Eventually, they had to drop out to help their parents raise their siblings, work. But those dress shoes stayed the course of their lives. As Yuck finally tucked itself in for the night, I stared out the window to the right of my pillow and watched the moon and the stars talk with one another. Then curiosity woke up and took a stroll through my mind down a different road to ponder. Could dress shoes really do all the things my parents mentioned? In Atlanta, well, you're often reminded via pictures, well, photographs, yeah, billboards that black people marched for their freedom. And that night, I remembered that the men and the women were wearing dress shoes. I walked the halls of Booker T. Washington High School. Well, the same halls as Dr. Martin Luther King. And on the walls were images of him. Well, and in those images, he was wearing dress shoes. Could dress shoes have power? The ruby red slippers of Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. My mama's favorite movie, and Dorothy's her name. Cinderella. Everything turned to rags except for her slippers. Whoa. Somehow dress shoes were always there to help people along their journey. And I got some. Oh! Watch me. Oh! Watch me. Oh! You know I got soul. And I'm super bad. Oh! Yeah. I know. Not the same soul. But now understanding the role of souls lifted my soul, and I felt super bad. Now, it took me some time to learn how to use this new soul power. Playing sports in my dress shoes, thinking that they'd give me super abilities to dribble or catch a touchdown or dunk. No. Only swollen ankles. But over time, I learned when and how to choose the appropriate dress shoes to get me through tough financial times, moments of loneliness, job interviews, relationships that broke my heart when the thrill was gone. Years later, my daddy lost his foot to diabetes, which eventually led to his passing. I remember my mom would call me and say, well, James seems depressed. I'd pull up at the house to take him on a drive, hoping some blues would lift his spirit. He'd be waiting on the front porch when I pulled up. His one foot in his one immaculately shined dress shoe. He'd grab his crutches, stand, tap his foot, head up. I'm ready, he'd say. We'd bend the corner, listening to some Chuck Berry. These days, I don't depend on dress shoes that often for my confidence, but I do own about 200 pair. For every moment, every situation that just might call for some soul power. Mama! Daddy! I'm ready. Thank you.
My nunchucks have been a source of inspiration and direction in my life. Past experiences have proven to me their magic, power, and healing properties. Nunchucks are two pieces of sticks joined together with a chain. Originally used on the island of Okinawa by farmers to cut down stalks of rice, eventually making their way as a martial arts self-defense weapon. When I pick up one or two pairs of nunchucks, magic and good fortune happen. It's as if all the powers of the universe and an unbreakable belief in myself are at my fingertips. I compare it to holding Thor's hammer, or the Monkey King's magical staff, or King Arthur's sword, Excalibur. Yeah! You know, I had an adventurous childhood growing up in San Francisco. Most of my adventures, though, were precarious. Thank God I survived. Yep, in fact, I was very fortunate that my mischief, hopping fences and skipping up and down rooftops, didn't lead me down the wrong path. Fate stepped in on that hot summer day of August 19th, 1973. At the age of 13, my life would change. That was when my friends and I boarded the streetcar to go see the premiere of Bruce Lee's movie, Enter the Dragon, playing at the Warfield Theater on Market Street. You guys might have heard of it. Anyway, Bruce Lee's masterful use of a little-known weapon at that time, a pair of nunchucks, and his unique war cry, "Wah!" was both electrifying and inspiring. I was zapped with divine inspiration as I shouted out, "Wow, look at him work those things. I want to do that. I want to be the next Bruce Lee." That was my dream. I made a pair of nunchucks out of my mom's broomstick handle. I practiced night and day with them, collecting a series of injuries on my elbows, my head, my lower back, and my collarbone. I still feel that. But anyway, my new journey enriched my new life with new people, places, and things. It started my learning in different combative arts, and it also gave me the love of the new people and the culture of China. My passion my journey also took me to some dark situations that as a young teenager, I didn't know how to handle. I was diverted from my dream, and I was perverted at an early age. After some time of mourning the loss of my innocence, I reconnected with my dream, and I picked up a pair of my nunchucks, and I practiced with them. Their magic got me through that dark period of my life. In my early 20s, I joined the Army. I spent 3 years on active duty as an 11 Charlie mortarman. That's an indirect infantry soldier. And if I had more time, I'd tell you about that. But anyway, upon leaving active duty, I enrolled in an ROTC program where I received my commission as an officer in the infantry. One day, after practicing with my nunchucks, I decided that it was time to move to LA to pursue my dream. My plan was to make my mark in Hollywood as the next Bruce Lee. Well, fate again intervened, and this turtle thing got in the way. Yeah, this big tortoise had to move. No, anyway. The production company of Golden Harvest was looking for one more person to play the stunt turtle for their character, Michelangelo, on their second installment movie. You might have heard of this one, too. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 movie, Secret of the Ooze. Yep, I just happened to be in the right place. I was the right height, right size. I had the right skill set. And the timing was impeccable. The deciding factor, though, well, listen to this. The deciding factor that I had to do an audition in front of the stunt coordinator and the producers of Golden Harvest with Michelangelo's personal weapon. You got it, nunchucks! So I took a pair of my nunchucks out of my small duffel bag. I gave him a kiss for luck. I took a bow, and I began. And lo and behold, magic happened. I was picked as a new stunt turtle for Michelangelo that day, and at the end of the week, on a Friday, I was on a flight to London, England, to be fitted for the costume at the famed Jim Henson Creature Shop. Yeah, and as they say in Hollywood, the rest is history. But let me tell you, though, after 30 years, after one of the worst pandemics in world history, and also after working 2 years on night crew, not in the sewers, I was pulling pallets, I was breaking them down, and I had to stock shelves. Fate again is knocking at my door. I'm going to answer because this mass of blood, water, bones, and flesh who dared battle the demons of life and within is still standing, nunchucks in hand. Yes. Now, I still yearn for that dream of my younger self, but now I see that dream through the lenses of an older person, or an older man, actually. And as an older man, I have the ability to update my dream and to become the best version of myself, Nick Palma, for my family, friends, and the world as a martial arts action actor. That's right. These nunchucks will always serve as a great source of inspiration and direction in my life, sprinkled with magic, power, and some healing, as well as a deep, deep bond with Bruce Lee and the gateway to my dream. I give myself permission to continue my dream and to prosper. Finally, I want to leave you with these words. I implore you, what is a dream if not a blueprint for courageous action? Action! Slow motion! Regular speed! Cut! Thank you.
Guitar. One of my 3 older brothers gave me my first one for Christmas when I was 11. Unlike other gifts I used to get, it wasn't under the tree, but arrived via special delivery. And oh, what a special delivery it was. So beautiful. I was overjoyed. A Sunburst Airline hollow body electric guitar that he had purchased for me from the Montgomery Ward catalog. It cost $49.95. That was a lot of money back then. The year was 1960, and when I picked it up and held it for the first time, it was indeed love at first sight. Blame for my lifelong passion and fascination with the instrument rests entirely on one person's shoulders, Elvis Presley. I know Elvis used his guitar primarily as a prop to hide what was then considered his scandalous gyrations. So it wasn't his simulated guitar playing that made me want to play one. Oh, hell no. It was how the girls reacted the first time I saw him on the Ed Sullivan Show. That did it for me. In my young mind, the guitar he barely played was all the reason I needed. It was the sole reason for his being. Yeah. In the years since I received my first one, I've owned many guitars of varying styles, colors, and values, and have played them for appreciative audiences in many different venues. I played for enthusiastic audiences in school concerts and dances, middle, high, and college, and in many nightclubs, including a few segregated ones in my home state of Louisiana during my teen years. Places where, oddly enough, even though they loved our music, we weren't even allowed to use their restrooms and had to relieve ourselves outside in the grass in the back of the club. Clubs where the heavy smoke from countless cigarettes smoked nonstop mixed with the smells of liquor and cologne. This eye-burning smoke drifted to and lingered over the stage as if drawn there by a magnet. Now, also in my teen years, I had the privilege of backing up performers with gold records to their credit. Phil Phillips and Joe Simon. People I'd listened to on the radio and seen on the American Bandstand. Phil's song, Sea of Love, was later central to the plot of an Al Pacino movie with the same name. And Joe later won a Grammy for Best Male R&B Vocal Performance. Later, while in the military, I even played for delighted officers and fellow enlisted men while serving in Dong Ha, Republic of Vietnam, on a base in the combat zone 7.5 miles from the DMZ, all thanks to special services that provided the instruments for our use. In the San Francisco Bay Area, after my discharge from the military, the groups I played and sang in kept audiences in the club grooving to music by James Brown, Marvin Gaye, Al Green, Tower of Power, Sly and the Family Stone, Kool and the Gang, the Ohio Players, and so many others. We played dance music, and dance they did. Two key players from those famous groups, Cynthia Robinson of Sly and the Family Stone, and James Brown's favorite slide man, Maceo Parker. Maceo Parker. Maceo! Dropped in to share the stage with the last group I played in. Even folk singer Joan Baez came to dance to our music. I own 3 guitars now. But this one, the last guitar to come into my life and possession, has a special significance. It was given to me by one of my nieces in 2017. Her father, Joe, at the time my last living brother, was on the verge of shuffling off his mortal coil, and she felt he would want me to have it. I cherish it. I love cradling the sweet, sexy curves of its heavy, solid body with my right hand, while my left hand runs along the long, slender neck as my right hand is plucking the strings that run from its head like strands of hair from its head down past the waist to the spread of its hips. All as I explore ways of making it sing, moan, and squeal with delight. It's a Les Paul Gibson Gold Top. And it fills me with so much joy to be able to play it, hold it, and most of all, share it with others, like now.
I rarely leave home without it. My New York Yankee all-black fitted cap. 100% polyester, black undervisor, size 7.5. I'm not sure when I started wearing this blocker of light. It was a little before Jay made it more famous than a Yankee can, and a little after Spike wore the first red one he got specially made. The finishing touch of my own personal uniform. All black everything, allowing me to make one less decision. The Russian playwright Chekhov might say I'm in mourning for my life. A friend told me it's a reflection of how I feel. The military calls something like this my cover. And sometimes I think the accessory matches my I'm from New York, leave me alone, resting bitch face. And I guess I am trying to be hard, and I do want you to leave me alone. But not because I don't like people. I'm covering the things I don't want you to know about me. I'm close to 40 with tremendous debt. Never purchased a car in my life, and this is LA. I don't own, I rent what's known as a bachelor studio, meaning I'm prepping food in an air fryer on a hot plate in a 150 square foot studio, no stove. Every night, I hang my hat there and open a trifold futon to sleep. I'm a person that didn't put his best friend's belongings on my renter's insurance when our apartment got robbed. When I was 14, I got jumped and haven't let my guard down since. I don't want you to know it took me 8 years to finally get my degree. When my career was starting to flourish, I interrupted it by joining the military at the ripe age of 29, who, while in charge at the motor pool in Afghanistan, lost my stripes for self-snitching by reporting up a negligent discharge that occurred when cleaning my light machine gun. I'm the same person who decided to marry a woman with a child, then chose to divorce her. I pledged for the same fraternity twice, then dropped. Great decisions. I now second-guess everything I do. I don't want you to know that I just the other day settled on a proper pill dosage for my depression and adjustment disorder. I haven't held a job, a full-time job, since 2017 before I deployed. And I only rose one rank in the 8 years in the Army. What I really don't want you to know, I'm a middle-aged, unpaid intern. Alone and by myself, I'm happy with those decisions. I made them with executed and careful thought. But these days, I'm not sure they were the right ones. I have a great fear of people judging me, and am I lacking? So other times, I'll overcorrect. I'll invite you in because I love getting to know people. I'd rather stop the noise in my brain and make impulsive decisions and trust my instinct. Sometimes I'll even get away with things I probably shouldn't. We might share a Jaeger bomb or a bullet meat, and I'll show you a unique toast that you must do each time you get a drink because rituals matter. You might plead to the dance floor with dance bachata, and I most certainly will wave a flag when soca comes on, real quick. And if it's your wedding reception, I'm picking you up in a chair, and we're dancing the hora, no matter what denomination you are. I'll even pick up sticks, and we'll join you in a dandia ras. I'll stop deciding and just do. Other times you catch me without my cover, in a colorful outfit or in a suit, code switching, because my preferred vernacular is associated with the lack of education, when really, it's a dialect from where I was born and raised, Queens, the world's borough, home of as many as 800 languages. Sadly, I can only speak English. I only understand the tongue of where my family's from. More often, I'm addressed in Spanish in the street by strangers, when really my family's from the Philippines. I probably know more Spanish than I do Tagalog. Even my grandparents spoke Spanish. When I was a kid, I told my mom, don't speak like that, none of the kids do. Speak English. And for some reason, she listened. Maybe she knew what I've grown tired of doing in the various groups I've been a part of. Assimilate. Maybe it's the reason why my parents were separated. My father naturalized my last name to C-R-U-I-S-E from C-R-U-Z. He claimed to do it because we were colonized by Spain. I think the name change anglicized it. But I don't think I have an uncle named Tom. Maybe assimilation is the reason why I left my friends and family and came to the city of dreams. No one knows me here. I can be who I think I am. But who is this man under this hat? I'm the same person who continues to be a lifelong learner and earned his master's degree, who tried everything he's been interested in, even if I had to charge it, who found the love of his life in LA, and she's been buying me white tees. Thanks, Zakia, if you're out there, I love you. I don't need a car. I ride everywhere I go. I'm the same person who has become a 32nd degree Mason and earned his 3 patches from a motorcycle club in New York. Yeah, I live in a bachelor studio. I got different priorities. However, I did buy a bed that came on the 16th. No need to suffer just because. I'm learning. The last 8 weeks has taught me a lot. And I did earn back my stripes. I'm not 3 different people. I'm all my decisions, and I'm none of them. Thanks for listening. My hat's off to you.
It's really ironic that the worst decision in your entire life can actually lead to the best thing that you've ever felt. Growing up, my immediate family was pretty much all we had on a regular basis. And our culture wasn't rooted in anything historical or traditional. Our culture was what we made with each other. It was love. In whatever aggressive, competitive, sometimes misguided way we had of showing it, but love. And I would learn to place that love in tokens that remind me of who I am and that I am loved. This bear was given to me moments after arriving home from the hospital when I was a baby. The feel, the smell, the warmth of this bear is as real to me as any of you here today. One hug and I still feel as safe and loved as I did when I was a baby and a child all those years ago. Every sick day, sad day, adventure, success, this bear was with me through it all, and those memories are vested in him. Now, I would care for and live with despair for far longer than is socially acceptable for any adolescent. But I didn't care, because those feelings were and are real to me. But I would leave despair at my childhood home, go off to college, start a career in the Marine Corps, meet and marry my wife, and begin my life as an adult. And one year, going through memories in my childhood home in New York, I would come across a Rubbermaid container in my basement that had been, to use a military term, rat-fucked. Some of you sickos really get that. Destroying every childhood memory and or toy I had in that bin, except, by some miracle, this bear. And I had to save him from that jeopardy. So after rescuing Bear, we moved on to Okinawa, and my wife and I got pregnant, and we got ready to welcome our son into the world. And then COVID-19 hit. We were in Japan during the pandemic, and we felt like we were completely alone. You see, when you were on base during the pandemic in Japan, nobody could come visit you from out of country. Nobody could come visit you in your house. You couldn't go grocery shopping unless it was certain days. You were not even allowed to leave that domicile unless it was an emergency for what felt like months. And as the stress built, we became more and more aware that we were not sure what we were going to do when the baby finally came. But then he did. Still during the pandemic, in the middle of a typhoon. And it was the most chaotic birth we could have ever imagined. It resulted in an emergency C-section, and had we waited even an hour longer, both my son and my wife could have died there in the hospital. The decisions we had to make and the fear we felt in those moments were beyond real. And the first thing that I thought when I saw my son in the OR was anger. You see, I was so angry at him for almost killing his mother. Something I know is the most irrational, absurd thing to feel towards a newborn. That to this day, I still feel the guilt of that notion even passing through my mind. The next morning, on a call home to my father to announce my son's entry into the world, he let me know that my ski patrol coach, basically the most important mentor in my life other than my father, had passed away on the exact same day my son was born. I miss you, Ron. I was driving home to get some things from our apartment, and I just sat in my car for an hour crying on the phone, lamenting to my father that the stress was too much. I was going to be a terrible father for feeling these things and not knowing how to process them, and I couldn't bear the weight of all this tumult falling on me. But somehow, my dad assured me that everything would be okay and I would get through this. So I did what we learned to do best in the military. I compartmentalized those fears. Save them for a rainy day. And got ready on my mission to raise my son. And it got better. It got so much better. Really did. The pandemic restrictions lifted, we were able to start going out more, we were able to start seeing friends. Granted, our family couldn't come visit us in Okinawa, but at least we didn't feel like we were completely alone and we were figuring it out. Then the deployment to Australia came. You see, months before Henry was born, my son, I was offered the opportunity to lead a team of Marines down in Darwin, the force that rotates to the Northern Territory year after year. Greatest job in the world. And I remember thinking to myself when I was offered the job, my son will only be a few months old, he's not going to remember me being gone, this will be totally fine, it's going to be good, don't worry about it. And boy was I fucking wrong. Henry was just 5 months old as the deployment approached. And I had come to love this kid so much that the thought of even spending a single night on duty away from him made me want to go AWOL. But I was locked in, and I had to go. So the night before we deployed, we went to the Okinawa Botanical Gardens for one last family outing, something serene and beautiful. And I remember I had Henry on a pouch on my chest, and we were standing on this electric lily pond. And I remember thinking to myself, I've made the worst mistake in my entire life. I must have stood there for an hour with that boy in my arms crying, listening to this song on repeat, watching the lights flash, and just praying that the night would never end. When we got home and put Henry down in his crib for bed, I went to my room and I got this bear. And I placed him down in the crib next to my son who was sleeping, and I remember saying to him, look after him. And he did. My childhood best friend became my son's best friend while I was gone. Gone for over 7 months, and it was the hardest 7 months of my life. It tested my soul in ways I could never imagine. I missed my son's first birthday. It strained my marriage to its breaking point. It was the hardest 7 months of our lives. But when I got back, watching my son cuddle that bear did things to my heart I never knew I was able to feel. This bear still sits in my son's crib every night while he sleeps, watching over him like he did while I was gone. And while there's a lot of times I want to pull him out for a hug or a cuddle or some scent of that childlike wonder that we all miss, it is Henry. This bear belongs to you, buddy. This is your best friend. And that's the greatest gift I could ever imagine. From the thing that has always reminded me of who I am, where I'm from, and what I'm worth. It's love. And I could never imagine another way to love. Thank you.
From as far back, one moment. That's better. From as far back as I can remember, I have always had a fear of dark closets. I guess metaphorically, closets represent darkness, the unknown. It was the physical embodiment of fear. My fear had become so paralyzing that I had refused to sleep in my own room and slept in my mom's room instead. Occasionally, I was denied entry into her room, and it was okay, because I'd sit outside her bedroom in a tuxedo position and wait until she gave in to my soft tantrum. I slept with my mother until I was 13. I know, it's embarrassing. But in my defense, my life seemed to take a downward spiral shortly after. I became very, very rebellious. Every opportunity I had, I gave her a hard time. I guess this was my way of protesting. Let me in your room. Let me in your room. I defied the house rules. I dropped out of school for a spell. But I knew I needed structure to better my behavior. So I decided to join the roughest, the toughest military branch of them all, the United States Marine Corps. Hoorah! Semper Fi! My best friend and I, we joined the service under this buddy program. And no, we were not together throughout our entire tour. That was a bold-faced lie. But
But we bought into this idea that it was some sort of pseudo-fitness program. We were like, let's join the Corps and we can stay fit for the rest of our lives. After arriving at boot camp, I sincerely questioned my decision making. Like, why on earth would I sign up for this? I cried nearly every night in my bunk. My scariest moment was the gas chamber. I would liken the gas chamber experience to taking the final mile walk on death row. Slow and dreadful. But we were required to walk into this active gas chamber, masked up, and then remove our gas mask for an unspecified period of time, and then secure it. Because I had been practicing holding my breath for as long as I possibly could, I was able to pass this training exercise with flying colors. Yay me! As I exited the gas chamber, I was thinking, this boot camp experience isn't too bad after all. I got this. Suddenly, I hear this hissing noise behind me. And as I turn around, it's one of our drill instructors, masked up, running towards us, releasing gas into our area. I was completely caught off guard. I was disoriented, but it was pretty clear I was gonna die. I began to cough profusely. It felt like I coughed up every organ in my body. I cried a lifetime of tears. Help was nowhere to be found. And as I look around, all of my fellow recruits were in the same predicament, coughing, reaching, panicking, falling like flies. And eventually, I just fell to the ground in my deathbed, ready to meet my maker. After graduating boot camp, I considered it one of my greatest achievements because it was difficult to the oomph power. And if I can accomplish the hardest experience known to man, how much more can I accomplish on life's journey? Now, I volunteered for the Marines. In other words, I volunteered for that closet experience. But there are times where I am thrusted into a dark experience for which I did not ask for. One prime example of that is my older brother dying. He was my best friend and my confidant. And when he died, I was completely numb, like I was on this bed of clouds and nothing around me was real. And to make matters worse, I had lost my job at the same time and consequently my apartment. It was all a blur, but I distinctly remember loading everything in storage and having this conversation with my son sitting in the car and just telling him how we were going to finagle living out of the car. And suddenly I received a call from one of the ladies from my church who demanded that we come live with her rent-free. Boy, was I happy to be out of that closet experience. Now, I know I sort of glossed over my military service, but I do want to share my most darkest, devastating experience of all. One of the things that I love most about my military service is the relationships that you form. We were like blood relatives, like family. And as in every family, there is drama and there is dysfunction. And I was a recipient of that. I was sexually assaulted by one of my superiors. And to harden the blow, I was pregnant with my son at the time. It's interesting because as I was going through my closet experience of being sexually assaulted, my son was introduced to his very first closet experience as he tumbled the darkness of my womb. It does explain why he's so overprotective today. But whilst going through the legalities of the sexual assault case, I contemplated suicide. My character was brought into question. I was labeled a liar, a person who couldn't be trusted. I was deemed the villain. And ultimately, all of this led to the acquittal of my assailant. And honestly, I never wanted to speak on it ever again. But after separating from the military, I had a chance to share my experience with ladies groups across the Southern California region. And as I continued to share,
healing took place. It was very cathartic for me. You know, to this day, I am still afraid of dark closets. My partner can ascertain that I cannot go to bed and sleep soundly until all the closet doors have been sealed shut. But it doesn't prevent me from walking into dark territory. My fear of closets have actually enabled me to navigate the vicissitudes of life. Maybe next time I will share more adventures and experiences with you. But until then, thank you and good night.
Spring 2002. I'm 11 years old. I'm looking for my coloring book in this overstuffed closet that my mom and I share. We live in New York City, Wagner Projects, and it's a project, so there's no space for anything. I carefully remove one thing at a time to make sure I don't make a mess, but despite all my efforts, a binder with all of my mom's important papers drops to the floor and spills across the room like marbles. Immediately, I try to put it back together because I know I'm gonna get hit for the mess and for the binder being broken. But out of the corner of my eye, peeking from under a few pages, a yellow card calls my attention. Immunization card. What's that? Then I see my name, Shalayna, written really small, so small you can barely read it under the crossed out name Isabel. Who's Isabel? Suddenly I hear from the kitchen, Shalayna, ven a comer ahora mimito. I rush to put everything away. The next day, I'm playing with my leftover pollo guisado, thinking about Isabel. I can kind of hear my mom in the background complaining about nobody helping her clean the house. Typical. Then she huffs and puffs into the kitchen, and without my own consent, I blurt out, Ma, ¿quién es Isabel? She gets quiet, and her face softens. She's never quiet. Not my mom. Contemplating, she busies her hands with the dish. Seconds, which felt like minutes, pass when she finally says, Where'd you hear that name? Careful not to snitch on myself, I come up quickly with, Oh, I was just putting my clothes away and I saw a card with both the names on it. I hold my breath. Finally, she turns to me and says, Comete la comida, and leaves. I do as I'm told. And when my plate is clean, I make my way to our bedroom. And when I open the door, I notice that my mom set up 2 chairs to face each other, right in front of the window. But I'm captivated by the way the breeze dances in the curtains and the way the rays of the sun fill the room. Even the building across the street is sparkling. It's a perfect New York City day. It's so beautiful, I almost didn't notice that she was crying. I mean, she cries a lot, but it's usually about bills, money, or food. This feels different. She tells me to sit because she has news. I see that softness again, except this time it's accompanied by an even more rare emotion, terror. I've never seen her so vulnerable. It's honestly really hard to see her this way. My stomach starts to free fall as she tells me a story about drug-addicted parents who lost their kids to adoption. One of the little girls got to stay with a family member, and the other one, well, the other one's Isabel. I just sat there frozen. I guess when your life is ablaze, time does this funny thing where it slows down so you can watch all of it burn. I begin to realize that I am Isabel, and Isabel is me. Everything's a lie. Who am I? As my mother sits in front of me weeping, apologizing for not telling me any sooner, all I could think to do was look her in the eyes and say, Ma, I love you. You're my mom. It's okay. I don't know. I guess I just don't have the heart to tell her
how painful watching my identity evaporate really is. So we embrace. And as we do, I stare beyond the window bars, holding back my tears. What a beautiful day. The family's relieved to know that she told me. It's utterly embarrassing how many of them knew. And torture as they would say things like, Ahi, I've had to keep the secret for so long and pretend like you're one of us. Or, what a relief it is to finally be able to talk about it in front of you. They have no idea how deep they cut. I mean, how could they? I would never cry, at least not in front of them. Listen, as far as I'm concerned, I have nothing to cry about. Compared to those other kids in the system, I have a roof over my head. I have a family. I have a mom. I better be grateful. My wounds barely healed, and like a shoelace caught in a bike chain, that cold, hard ground finds me again. We're driving to the Lower East Side. My mom's in the passenger seat, and my sister's driving. And from the back seat, I do the unthinkable. I interrupt an adult conversation with an 11-year-old input. So my mom turns to me and in her harshest tone yells, "Don't be stupid like your fucking mother." I recoil in my seat, shocked, thinking, but I thought you were my mom. So I look to the rearview mirror and make eye contact with my sister in hopes that she would console me, but instead she just looks away. So I sit there in the back seat silently weeping. Abandoned, motherless, again. So I stare out the window and I watch building after building after building, trying to understand. Why doesn't she want to be my mom anymore? When we get home, I find that fucking card. And when I'm all cried out, I collect myself and all those little pieces. And I do what any little girl with a broken heart would do. I throw it down the incinerator to burn. I'll give myself a name. Yeah. Something that represents self-love, strength, but most importantly, independence. Hi, I'm Shay. Thank you.
Often, all I need to be identified as a veteran is looking like this. And then, inevitably, comes the thank you for your service. When I wasn't so far removed from combat, I would meet that sentiment with rolling eyes, a polite smile, or just a thanks. It was 20 years ago, almost to the day, I bought this for myself. This. Camelback, nylon canvas weave, olive drab green, high speed, low drag, assault pack. At Camelback, we assault your mouth with hydration. We had just received our orders for a year of combat in Afghanistan.
And at the time, Iraq was all the rage. So with all the attention went all the equipment. Not that the Army didn't give us assault packs, it's just the ones they issue couldn't handle the loads we're expected to carry. This bag has traveled with me through the roughest and smoothest terrains. Maybe it stayed around so long because Camelback only makes the highest quality bags. I think it's remained because woven into the fabric are every journey we've been on together and the subsequent pieces of my identity born out of those journeys. But also, look at all these pockets. I've struggled reconciling my service with our country's desperate need to place any public servant on a pedestal simply because of position and not character or actual service. I don't think people usually know who they're thanking when they just whip that thing out in public. We may not have even seen combat, or we may be a genuinely shitty person. Service in the military does not a hero make. Or you may be thanking someone like me, who the Army taught how to solve problems with murder. Oh, sorry to ruin your patriotic fantasy, but what is it? What is it that you think we do? Especially me. I was infantry. Infantry, you are the front line. You're the grunt, the warfighter, or as some like to affectionately refer to us as the bullet stoppers. Infantry is not the only job where you might have to kill someone, and if you do, you feel pretty bad about it. But infantry is the only job where if you don't get to kill anyone, you feel even worse. I feel terrible. As awful as that sounds, it's where the Army has to get you mentally in order to do what you may have to do. When you're in training, drill sergeants need to break down whatever identity you had before and rebuild it in their own image. But not only do they need to make sure you're ready to kill, they need to ensure you're excited about it. Imagine you're 18. You're standing in a formation with 100 copies of you. You want some money for college, but first, the Army needs to know if you're motivated. So the drill sergeant will refer to that formation saying, "Delta Company, are you motivated?" Your response is, "Motivated, motivated, hell yeah, motivated, ooh, I want to kill somebody. Ooh, I want to kill somebody soon." Not in a little while, not after breakfast. Soon. We take thousands of angsty as hell teenagers, arm them with semi-automatic weapons, and give them a fucking deadline. How about, ooh, I want to solve world problems. Ooh, I want economic stability. Soon. And while killing is your job as an infantryman in combat, when not, you are a soldier who is expected to live up to a higher moral standard. You must live and breathe the Army values, of which there are 7. Loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, personal courage. By their powers combined, they form the acronym leadership. So you end up with this really confusing dichotomy of kill, respectfully. Ooh, I need better instructions. Good thing there's so many pockets. Did I fulfill my duties as an infantryman in combat and kill? I'm certainly guilty by association. And while there are numerous stories about patrols, IEDs, or our FOB coming under fire living in each of these pockets, they're all stories for another time. And none of them, not one, had any direct effect on yours or anyone else's personal freedoms here at home. That's the part that's tough to reconcile. Throughout that year in combat, we lost a few guys. And a few more lost parts of themselves. And when we got back, my bag and I got our honorable discharge and moved on to the rest of the adventures this life would bring us. We were in Chicago, attending the Second City Theater Conservatory, when Specialist Deodante, who was nearly killed by an RPG in that year, suffered catastrophic injuries in a training accident, succumbed to suicide. We were performing on another military installation, right around the time Obama did that long walk to announce bin Laden had been killed, when Sergeant Ryan Green, just this smiley little ball of fun, was killed in Iraq in another deployment. We were hiking a mountain in South Korea when a former soldier of mine, Jonathan Shusky, and his squad, who were in Afghanistan for a third time, were blown up by a house. Somehow they all survived. Just not the same people they were before. And for the last few years, my bag has been tucked away in the garage while my 2 boys were born. Coming out just last week to hike all over Yosemite, my 10-month-old's blankie now comforting those memories. Every adventure we have together, I think of some or all those guys. Their service now is much a part of the fabric as my own journeys, and a burden carried by every combat veteran. Part of what helped me reconcile my service was adding the weight of theirs to my own baggage, knowing I've at least tried to make my service worth it. So now, when someone lets slip a thank you for your service, I tell them, and I'll tell you what I have to tell myself. You were worth it. Thank you.
In 2007, during the height of the Iraq War, a 3-star general who we will call Church decided he was going to take on the biggest threat to the American soldier that existed in Iraq at that time. I'm not talking about the IEDs we were dealing with or the multiple sexual assaults that were taking place on military installations or even the lack of equipment or body armor. General Church was going to be taking on Salsa night. You heard me. Salsa night. For those of you guys who don't know, Salsa night emerged on most military installations as a way for soldiers to blow off steam. It took place once a month, throw on a little music, dance a little salsa. General Church discovered this fact when he took a tour of the camp on a Friday night and came across an infantry unit out of San Juan, Puerto Rico, son. Boricuas, baby. Yeah. You see, what my guys would do after they come off patrol is they put down their weapons and pick up their bombas and their clavas and erupt with the infectious rhythm of salsa. This really chapped his ass. And as General Church tried to figure out how to ban salsa while the rest of us were fighting a war, I laughed and smiled because I knew something that General Church would never understand. You see, where I grew up, salsa floated out of every open window, and it moved in between alleys and bodegas and basketball courts and landed on the front stoop of my apartment building. I was never allowed to leave. It was just a very real fear of my grandmother and her weapon of choice, which was a spatula. But don't worry, baby, because this was West Town, Chicago, baby, 1985. And child abuse was completely legal back then. I mean, I gotta take you back for all you youngsters, because back then, you didn't have internet or social media or influencers, you know, kind of ruining the fucking world. The heat that summer was so hot that it melted the soles of my Chucks on the black pavement, still simmering in the summer sun. But they look Gucci. And the air, it sizzled with the smell of arroz con gandule and sazon being cooked by Puerto Rican mothers. And you could hear the elote man who would push his cart from Maxwell Street all the way down to Addison Avenue, peddling fresh corn and pasteles and ice cream made of fresh coconut milk for a quarter. And the music? Oh, come on, baby. This is 85. This was during the rise of hip-hop and freestyle. Pero salsa. Shh. Salsa swayed every Puerto Rican flag that hung from every fire escape. It felt like the earth erupted with a rhythm that flowed in and out of our small rent-controlled apartments. And it touched you wherever you were at. It touched my father on the factory floor where he worked double shifts with no air conditioning to pay our rent. It touched my mother, who after her shifts at the hospital would stay up all night, proudly making clothes that I was too embarrassed to wear because they didn't have brand names. It flowed in and out of prison cells where my cousin was incarcerated for playing his music too loud. And also because of the stolen Cadillac he was sitting in at the time. I'm just keeping it real, baby. You see, what General Church didn't understand was that baked into salsa was our history and our culture, and Papa, we weren't about to let that up. It was blended with the rhythm of our indigenous ancestors who left this earth shortly after Columbus discovered them. It was infused with the rhythm of our African ancestors who were forced to work sugarcane fields until their fingers bled to make other people rich. They would play their drums out of protest, and you could hear that all over the island. And when you would put those two things together, it made the most amazing Afro-Caribbean music you would ever hear. And you know it as mambo and merengue and Latin jazz and soul, and its lyrics were pure poetry. It was ripped from our souls and told our stories of pleasure and passion and pain. And when you would hear it, I mean, pero papa es salsa. I mean, everybody would move. Your body just couldn't stay still. Salseros would be on the street doing this. And if you had bad knees, which I know y'all do, you did this. I mean, it just made your body sway, and your feet tap, and your hands clap. And just like that, it was gone. With a flick of a pen and a new army policy, General Church declared war on salsa during the height of an Iraq insurgency. And that music was replaced with a deafening silence. It was cut only by the sound of generators sweltering in 100-degree Iraqi heat. Heat that would melt the boots off of the feet of young soldiers named Figueroa, and Rivera, and Jimenez. And their mothers felt that silence as they received folded American flags in places like Ponce and San Juan and the South Bronx. And they learned to live with that silence as they sat at empty kitchens, tables, on Christmas and Thanksgiving dinners. And I felt that silence. You see, what they don't teach you at boot camp or AIT or officer training is that a 15-month deployment feels like forever. When your job is to photograph young kids who haven't turned 21 1 minute, and then you bury them the next. And one particular night, when a bomb went off in a cafeteria and we had to bury 3 of them, it was a little too much for me, even from a Puerto Rican kid from the barrio, and I took a walk. I couldn't tell you what I was trying to escape from, maybe trying to just walk off the dirt and the grime and the death that just seemed to never wash away, no matter how much you wash and how many years have passed. But as I walked by the camp, past the Humvees and the T-walls that were meant to protect us from incoming fire, I walked all the way, and that's when I heard it. It was the most beautiful sound I ever heard. And I kept walking because I knew exactly what I would see as that music washed over me. Puerto Rican soldiers putting away their weapons and picking up bombas and clavas and erupting with the infectious rhythm of salsa. What's up, baby? And the thing was, I will never forget that night because I laughed and I danced and I cried. It was mostly out of pride because we knew something that General Church could never understand. Something I just wanted you to take from tonight, which is, my man, you ain't ever gonna silence Salsa.